You're north of Austin in Texas.
Boston,
Oh, Boston. Okay, that makes more sense. Okay.
Massachusetts. We couldn't be further from Texas.
Yeah, that makes more sense because I thought I heard you talk on one of your podcasts that you've been in your home for like three generations, or
Yeah,
maybe
we've
you're the
been in the
fourth
same
owner or
house since
something. Yeah, that made
1980,
more
and
sense.
we've got,
Boston.
yeah, we're all very settled here. So I think we're live now, and I'm going to ask Ernie to just text me and tell me we're live on the new messages down here, and then I'm going to introduce you properly. We're on YouTube as we speak, and then of course this goes out as a podcast. So let me do this right here for a second. This is In Conversation with Frank Schaeffer, and I am Frank Schaeffer, and my guest is Veeda. Tell me your last name.
Bybee.
I want to do it right because if I do it wrong once, even if you correct me, I won't be saying Bybee. Veeda Bybee, and Veeda is a former journalist and an author of several fiction and nonfiction books, including Shining a Light, Celebrating 40 Asian American and, sorry, 40 Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders who changed the world. And she's also a contributing editor to the am I saying that right? Anthology, Rural Voices, and the middle grade anthology called Calling the Moon. Her latest book is A Few of My Favorite Things, Recipes Inspired by Family-Friendly Musicals. And I'm, as I say, Frank Schaeffer, and also an author. And please subscribe right now on YouTube and to In Conversation with Frank Schaeffer on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and to my Substack commentary page. It has to be said at frankschaeffer.substack.com. And Ernie's just sent me something saying young adult. Oh, I see. That's what that YA means. Okay.
Yes.
I'm no good on, I go to MGH. I know that's Mass General because it's in the Boston area, and I go there for medical. The rest, forget it. I can never tell what anybody is when they stick letters after their name.
That's a good tip though. I should probably update my website and not use the YA
Yeah,
for
assume
those who
we
don't know.
assume
Yeah.
there's 72-year-old old guys like this who like your work but don't know shit and want to help out, but can't promote something if we don't know what it means. Hey, everybody, this is a wonderful book. It's usually when you talk about a wonderful book, you're talking about the content, but here it's also a beautiful book. A Few of My Favorite Things, Recipes Inspired by Family-Friendly Musicals. I am a fan of musicals. Some I like very much, some I don't like. Personal musical history, except it wasn't a musical, but it comes close because it's a Mozart opera that was dumbed down for 11 and 12-year-olds when I was a child. And I got to sing the role of the Count in a British boarding school. But then I did do a musical opera because I was also in HMS Pinafore the next year.
Oh yeah.
So that's sort of an operetta musical, but it counts. And from then on, I've always been somebody interested. I was probably terrible in both in terms of the singing, but it was a fond childhood memory. I took my 10-year-old, my youngest granddaughter, Nora, last year to the musical Six on the Wives of Henry VIII, and she danced and sang her way through it. We were in Boston with the cast from New York. It was fantastic. She knew all the songs because her older sister, who was 15 at the time, had been playing at home. They all watch musicals, so that, I basically know what you're talking about here. But the wrinkle here is that the last thing I would have thought of when I look at a musical is what sort of food does it inspire? And you've tied it together very cleverly, and people have got to see the actual book to understand how beautiful the photographs are. The muses, cucumber, yogurt, tzatziki, and there are such beautiful pictures here. I'm sorry for the low tech. I'm just holding it up to my camera. But every single page you open is a fantastic visual feast, as well as talking about food. I happen to be a very good cook. I know that sounds like a brag, but I've done all the cooking in my family for the last, I've been married 55 years since I got Jeannie pregnant when we were 17 and 18, and I do the cooking. And so I have two areas of contact on this book, and that is A, I love food and I cook, so I know what I'm looking at. And B, and this isn't necessarily the case. When I read your recipes here, they're all good. This isn't bullshit recipes. This isn't stupid stuff. Sometimes you see things in newspapers, or worse yet, influencers tell you how to do something, and it's really crap. But like San Angelo guacamole, here's the picture, and I read the recipe, and I made this to try it out, and it's delicious. So you've got a captive audience in me. So the first question I'm going to ask you is, how the hell do you come up with a book that combines themes from musicals, um, with recipes? And one last thing, it's sort of like Zen and the art of motorcycle maintenance. It's like, how did this happen? So tell me the story of the book before we get into the book.
Sure, this is such a great starting off point. But I first wanted to point out, I remember the song HMS Pinafore. So
Yeah.
that's been a long time hearing that. But I think I learned that when I was much younger too. So
Yeah.
thank you
Okay.
for
So
bringing that
we
memory
share
back.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, I think music has that ability where, um, I will read a book and I love reading, but
Yeah.
but music, when I hear a song, it can transport me back to a moment and a memory so much quicker than remembering an event, and so I
Sure.
think music has that power to do that. So I feel like musicals combined with storytelling, it's a really powerful tool, and it was absent in my life for a really long time.
Mm.
So the origins of this book is that I grew up loving musicals. Like Annie, my mom, so funny. She really wanted me to try out for Annie. I don't know why, because I'm not a
Sure.
talented singer or actor. And I don't even actually remember if I tried out or not, but because she was so enthusiastic about that musical, I appreciated it myself, and I had this love of
Sure.
musicals growing up. But I just noticed there was a lack of diversity and representation as an Asian American in them. So
Yes.
they fell out of favor for me for a long time.
Yeah.
But my children, they they actually found that love for themselves. Like, I didn't even bring it into our home really.
Mm.
Not that I was like outlawing it or anything. It just wasn't something
Yeah.
we gravitated towards. So during the pandemic, when Hamilton was coming out on Disney Plus,
Yeah.
we just didn't have very much to do, because we're just socially distancing and staying at home. So we thought, okay, let's watch this all together as a family.
Sure.
And that musical, I've actually never seen it in 2020. I've heard the soundtrack a bazillion times because
Yeah. Sure.
my middle schooler at years ago when it first came out, she just loved it. She knew every single word. And so that soundtrack has been playing in my head, but it was really powerful to see the actual stage production with the music that was already so familiar to us. And
Mm.
it just awoken something in me. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I've been missing out on musicals, and I wanted to bring them back into our family. And so I think this kind of a project is something I can only do during a time of like shutdown where there's nothing else to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because it's pretty time intensive, and we are a family like you. We also love food. My husband is similar to you. Like, I'm so grateful to have a spouse that cooks because he likes to
Yes.
cook as
Yes.
well. So
Yeah.
it's something that we do together.
Yeah.
And so that was just part of our family culture. So having the chance to, okay, I thought, well, if we're gonna do this, I had an idea, like, let's watch a musical every weekend,
Mm.
maybe kind of to get caught up on the ones we've missed out all these
Yeah.
years. And I thought, to make it a theme, because we love food so much, I'm gonna think of a recipe or some food that goes along with either the, like, maybe it's mentioned in the musical, or maybe it's
Mhm.
like time period related, or it has something to do with one of the themes. So yeah, so we did that
So that's how it happened. I mean,
yeah.
basically, that's so interesting to me because, everybody, and all my respect and love and grief with people who lost people and who were very ill themselves and cognitive difficulties since long COVID, et cetera. But that said, it so happened because my grandchildren live nearby that they sheltered with their parents when nobody could go to school, and then they spent their days with Jeannie and me, and we didn't mix with anybody else, and they didn't either. So basically, me and three of my five grandchildren lived together. They weren't sleeping in the house, but other than that, they were in the house all day, and their parents were working from home. Of course, they couldn't go to work. So my grandchildren and me, what we did is renovate an old barn of mine,
Oh wow.
and I could have the lumber delivered by truck. So they would unload, and the guy would arrive, and he'd be masked up, and I would deliver everything, including 5 pounds of 3-inch nails, whatever I needed, because you weren't going to stores. So we sort of did a COVID project too. And I got to honestly tell you, it was one of the best years of my life, which sounds terrible for a pandemic, but because we made a family project out of it, like you made this book, it totally makes sense to me. Because, what are you going to do? You're going to do something family oriented. So I want to say something about the book, besides the content of the book and these fantastic photographs. And I'm going to ask you who took those. Who took the photographs?
It was me. So, which is pretty impressive to myself. So
So you are a very talented woman because
Thank you.
these are, I have been a filmmaker. I wasn't a great filmmaker, pretty second rate, but I made my Hollywood movies. I know what a good photograph looks like. And I love your photographs. I mean, they are lit, they are made. And so you're doing this food and shooting it?
Yeah, so I got the project a-okayed and bought after the pandemic, of course, like years
Sure, of
afterwards.
course.
So I worked on this for, I don't actually, I didn't really keep track of time, but maybe over the course like a year and a half, it could be
Yeah.
two. Um, and I'm not a professional photographer. I do know some things like rule of thirds, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
so I
But
was
they're
able
beautifully
to,
set up. I mean, like this one here, Silky Secret Pan Fried Fish, happens to be very similar to something I cook all the time at home, especially since my wife had a heart attack 3 years ago. She's fine. She had a stent put in, but we radically changed our diet. There's a lot we don't eat. And of course, if you pan fry fish with olive oil instead of butter, it's exactly what the cardiologist told you to do. And then you have the vegetables and the rice underneath. But once again, beautiful photograph and just, damn good food. Von Trapp schnitzel with noodles. We can't eat as much of that anymore, the schnitzel part, especially if it's made with pork. But still, I'll make it for myself sometime. Um, it's really lovely. So first of all, I just want to say these photographs are fantastic. And the way you've laid the book out is just beautiful. The design of the book, everything else is just gorgeous. Jade Rabbit's honey soy glazed chicken, beautiful recipe. I like the plate you chose. Everything's so nice. So that brings me to the next sort of big point. We do a lot of podcasts with authors who've written very serious books. I don't mean unreadably serious academic books, but they're on subjects which are tough. Women who have been abused by their husbands tell their story of their life and why they left. People, Melanie Brooks, who wrote an incredible book called A Hard Silence about a father suffering from AIDS, who was also an evangelical Christian and therefore couldn't tell people in his church because then they would think somehow he was gay, and actually he had gotten it while giving a blood from blood transfusion while he was having surgery. Stories that are like that. And we're in the middle of a Trump presidency and a lot of controversy and a lot of unhappy headlines. What a relief to dig into this book now, because I know this isn't a very hot, I mean, this sounds weird, but this book is fun. And I don't mean to trivialize it. I mean, it was a relief. It was like looking up from my writing and going outside and feeling a fresh breeze and just being alive for a minute. And to have the fun of going through a book, looking at the recipes, Violet's blueberry hand pies, and then it makes me curious every time I see the headline. I want to read down and say, now, what musical does this attach to? So it's sort of a little bit of a detective hunt, like to match the food with and it's always a surprise to see what your connection is, but it never feels stretched. It's like, oh, I see why, King Brian's butter boiled potatoes are in this book. And after you read the passage, you kind of get it. So how many musicals did you watch, read, or read about, or see snippets of to kind of collect during that period to refamiliarize yourself with it, that you could then use as your kind of musical library to attach to recipes? And what came first, the chicken or the egg, the musical or the egg, the musical or the recipe? How did it work?
well, the musical came first for sure.
Yeah,
And I'd pick something and spend the week looking up. It was like a detective hunt for me as well to find out what did those in 1776 eat. I
yes,
found out Alexander Hamilton's favorite food was he loved cream puffs. I didn't include it in this cookbook, but that
yeah,
was just kind of a fun thing to find out.
yeah,
Um, and so there, I didn't include every single musical we watched over that year, but we did watch, 52 of them.
yeah,
And they're mostly ones that my family hasn't seen before. Like there's some that we have seen, but I was
yeah.
actually surprised how unfamiliar they were with some of the ones that are really
And
popular.
what
Like
was the age range of the kids watching this?
oh goodness, that was so many years ago. But let me think. I feel like I mean that's 5 years ago. So
Yeah,
my
sure.
oldest is 18. So they were anywhere from like 9 to whatever those teen years are. So
Yeah,
we were fairly my kids are fairly young then. I loved including them as part of the project though. Like in the head notes, I mentioned like who inspired this recipe, like what kid wants,
Yeah,
like that one a lot. And so I just felt like they are such a they give me such purpose. And so with my
sure.
work too, you mentioned that we are in this really hard time, and I
Mhm.
feel like the arts are something that can give us joy and do.
Absolutely.
And I love that you brought that up
Yeah,
because
and they have to keep going. And
yeah.
I had a very wise sister who, when I was a teenage father, believe it or not, trying to figure things out, one of the first things she told me about childcare has stuck with me my whole life. And the older I get, and now I'm doing childcare for grandchildren and so forth, so I kind of know what I'm doing at this point. But what she said then is so true. And your whole book is this, and your whole story with your children is this. And she said, forget games and toys. Kids like to do real things. And that's so smart. Renovate your barn with them. Let your 5-year-old fry an egg. Don't worry if they, make a mess. Cook with them. Kids love doing housework, believe it or not. Let them run the vacuum cleaner when it's too big for them. Unload a dishwasher, not make chores like this will teach them discipline, but that, rather than having kid things in the corner here, their toys, this is the shit they do, this is what they watch, fold them into the actual life you're living
Hmm.
and let them do stuff. And of course, that's what you did with this book. You're watching musicals with them. And of course, you and your husband both cook. So obviously, they're on board with that. And I'm presuming some of these photographs didn't only look good on the page. You then went off and ate this food
Oh,
um,
yeah.
as you
There's I don't
as
know
you were
any
doing.
food styling tricks, so that's all just the real food. I don't know
Yeah,
how to make it look better with like I know those like you can use glue for milk, that kind of stuff, but I use
I
that's all the
know. No,
actual
no,
food.
this isn't fake food. This is your real stuff. You can tell. Looks great too. T-Birds Rockin' Chocolate Cherry Cola Float. This is
Yeah,
like,
those are so fun. I
yeah,
I wish that's because that was for Greece in the
yeah,
1950s, and I have such an affinity for that Americana time, and I wish kids would gather at diners still like that, and
yes,
that's just such a
exactly.
fun thing.
Yeah, yeah. In Pulp Fiction, that scene when John Travolta with Uma Thurman dancing in there and all that. It's of course they're doing a retro nostalgia thing, but at the same time, I can remember being in LA in the 70s and there being real places that were not recreations, but still like that. And I always loved that. You had that touch. So you've got a book handy behind you there. I don't know if you've got one in front of you too.
I do one in front of me too. Yes,
Okay,
I'm
do me a
prepared.
favor and just start flipping through it
Okay.
and tell us the recipe, the musical, and you don't have to read each passage, but I don't want to be doing this to you because it's your book. I'd rather have you doing this to me. Take us through this book for people who just are listening. If you want to hold it up and show a picture, great. But give us a sense of the scope of the book. Again, here it is. I forget how many pages it is. It's like 170 pages. There's a musical index at the back, and the rest is all stuff here. Big top whipped cream. I love that to sort of towards the end of the book. So take us through it.
Thank you. And I appreciate this chance to kind of go through the book and just have this format too. It's really fun. I'm just going
Yeah.
to start with kind of the beginning where I have things broken up into acts of a play. So when I was deciding how to organize it, so for instance, the overture,
Yes.
this is just like that part
I like
here.
that.
So I'll just read it here. So the overture, and so I have, it's kind of like the beginning. So the French word for opening, the overture, is an introduction to the musical, usually a melody of the various tunes that will be part of the production, or prep work that will take place before the show or in the kitchen. So this section covers all you need. It was really fun to find that correlation. So there's like a section for your tools, like the overture.
Yeah,
And
I love
then,
that.
yeah, and then I start with the
And I
opening
like that you
number.
tie it to prep work for the kitchen because when I cook something, I make sure I put everything I'm going to use for that out because you never forget anything if it's all there. I don't get it out of the refrigerator and the cupboards as I use it. I put the whole thing I'm going to do here. So I got the whole thing there. And that's the only way. If you don't do the prep, you're going to forget. And that comes from building too, because I'm also a builder. So, when you're renovating a barn, you got to always know where all your stuff is. So prep work, the overture, I've never thought of as an overture, but that's a nice thought.
Don't you love how in life we can relate things that are important to us, like building or cooking, and like, oh, this is like a
Absolutely.
life
And
lesson.
guess what? You found this too as a mom and also a writer and also a cook. The same rules that make anything work make everything work.
Yeah.
And the same rules that screw things up, if you forget them or don't do them or have the wrong attitude, screw up anything, whether it's parenting or cooking or writing a book.
Yeah.
There's like three good rules, and if you keep those and do everything according to them, it all works.
Yeah. And hopefully I feel so cooking is one of those things where I think a lot of people can feel this perfection, like, oh, I didn't do this right. And
Yeah,
maybe it doesn't turn out, but I still think yes, it may not be 100%, maybe it doesn't look like something on the page,
sure.
but like I hope they feel proud of what they still created and attempted to do.
Yeah,
There's always another time. Just, you could always
yeah,
try it again and you still made dinner for your family, so I consider it a win too.
yeah,
But
exactly right. Never
yeah,
give up, never surrender. There we are.
yeah. So the next part, so I have like opening numbers, and so that's the very first section of the book where
Yeah,
this is my breakfast section.
yeah.
And the opening number is like, it's the start of the musical. Thank
Opening
you.
numbers. Yeah,
Yeah, and
following
in
the
our
money.
family, we just love breakfast, and I think it's maybe it's kind of this rebellion where we feel like breakfast is better when it's not breakfast time. So like we will sometimes have breakfast for dinner, like I'm sure other families do too.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's something that kind of feels a little bit like rebellious about it, like having
Yeah,
pancakes
and I like
for
these
dinner.
little illustrations in the side too.
Yes.
It's so cool. Speaking of nostalgia,
Yeah.
she's sort of right out of just a heartbeat before Mary Tyler Moore, and here she bops onto the page doing something
Yes.
cool for you.
So the
Yeah.
very first recipe is just a breakfast one. It's the Baroque French toast,
Yes.
and this is a recipe that you could use for like Beauty and the Beast. I use a play on the word Baroque, which is French,
Yes,
like for
sure.
broken up bread. And that this is fun. We use the thick like Texas toast style, so it's a
Mhm.
really thick
Sure.
pieces of bread, and you can make French toast sticks out of that. Let me see if I can flip through the past the
And it looks
breakfast.
great too.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Oh, one
this is
of
a another great picture.
Yes. One
Yeah.
of the recipes I love a lot too. It's a very simple one, but it's this one for coconut syrup, and we call it Maui's coconut syrup, and it's
Yeah.
very easy. It's coconut milk and pretty much sugar, and you kind of condense it down. I lived in
Yes.
Hawaii for about a year and a half, and
Yeah.
I grew to love coconut syrup and things that are influenced from that
Well, and
area.
by the way, I love the Henry Higgins proper full English breakfast. I went to boarding schools in England. That's the
Oh
real deal.
yeah.
That's there. The baked beans, the whole bit, the grilled tomato, the over easy eggs, a little bit of spinach there, and the baked beans. I love all this. And the sausages look great. You can't get British bangers here like you could there, but taste wise, this is all sort of, um, it's great. I mean, thank you for putting a
It's my
proper.
Americanized version, yes.
No, it's not that Americanized. This is for real.
Okay.
This is good. It looks right. I mean, an Englishman would say, okay, yep, I recognize, just like mom made.
Yeah, there are a lot of musicals that take place in England and in that area. So there's quite a
Sure.
few recipes that correlate to that. And I'm glad you saw that, My Fair Lady and Mary
Yeah, no, I
Poppins.
picked it right off. I love it.
Yeah. So I have, I'm still in breakfast, but this is the lazy morning congee. And this is rice, like it's a rice soup, rice
I
porridge
like
pretty much.
congee. When I go to Jeannie and I used to go all the time down in Chinatown in New York, but also in Boston. And if you get there at around 11 in the morning, even a dim sum place, you'll see the Chinese family. Somebody, especially older people, are sitting there eating congee, just like a
Yes.
British person's going to order porridge.
Yeah.
So sort
Yeah,
of
so
a rice porridge.
exactly. And I actually referenced that you could use this for like
Yeah,
Oliver because if you don't put any of the like Asian condiments, it could be a very like a porridge that way. I love making congee. This is our family's version of like a chicken noodle soup. So
yeah, but I
whenever,
love that you put the recipe in there because I'm not making this up just to do an interview. But in all honesty, I've always wanted to know how to make congee because it
okay,
looks like a comfort food that I'll enjoy. I've ordered some in restaurants and I've liked it, but it's a simple thing, but I wanted to know, I've never known how to make it.
so
So
this
this
one,
is good.
yeah, and I grew up with this, and my mom made it several different ways, so it was fun to kind of research and figure out the way I wanted to do it. And
Yeah,
it's so you take a cup of uncooked rice, and
yeah,
you'll boil it with chicken stock and some water
yeah.
for a long time, and so and the rice breaks down, and I love how it just like thickens the
How
soup.
long do you cook to get that breaking down? Because you're not doing it in a rice cooker, you're boiling it.
Yeah, so I think it's like 45 minutes at first, and
Yeah.
then you could boil it longer too. So
But are
I like
you
my
putting it,
rice.
what's the proportion of rice? Because like when you're in a rice cooker, you don't want it to break down and you want the grains separate and everything. So
Mhm.
how much liquid are you putting in there to break the rice down and still have it be liquidy and not just, a thick paste? What's the proportion kind of thing?
I love that you think of that. So I just do 1 cup of rice to about like 2 quarts of chicken stock. I'm reading it here. I have
Yeah.
like 2 cartons of like chicken stock, 32 ounces, 2 quarts, and a quart of water too. So it's
Yeah. Okay. That
a
makes
lot of
sense.
water to the grain.
And
And
once it comes to a boil, do you just sort of simmer it for that amount of time?
yes, and then you kind of, so it comes to boil, then you put on medium low, and it
Yeah.
just prevents it from sticking. But and then what I'll do, like, sometimes you could just serve it like that and just season
Yeah,
your
here it
own,
is
but I'll
again.
add some
And the way
ginger.
you've got it here with a couple little bits of egg and I think some
Yes.
green onion on there, you're going slightly, in Britain, their big division between all foods is either sweet or savory.
Okay.
So congee, you probably can have a sweeter version if you want to go that way, but this is more the savory version. Am I right? Because I see some egg and some onion on here.
Yeah, I've never had it sweet, but that'd be really interesting. So I
Oh,
definitely
I
have
don't
it
know if
savory.
anybody does. I'm just
Yeah.
saying this is definitely a savory version, but I've seen it in the restaurant down in Chinatown on Canal Street that I used to eat in a lot in New York. I can't remember seeing the green onion on it. I would watch it go by.
Okay, yeah.
So what all do you have on here? I'm looking at green onion, a little bit of egg,
So,
or
and
is
there's
that
a little bit of like rotisserie chicken. I love when you have like
right?
the fried garlic, the fried shallots, and
Right.
the congee. It's really a canvas of whatever you want to put on top of there. So you could add vegetables
How
more.
do you
Like,
eat it though?
yeah, I usually do like this fried egg,
This is your
and
thing, right?
yeah,
This
this
is
is
how
this
you
this is
eat
my
it.
version here.
And your
I think
kids like this?
yes, yeah. So I mentioned, and we put like this shredded chicken, and so that's
Yeah.
like our chicken noodle soup. When we're sick, this is what we'll make.
Very cool. And you
Thank
use
you.
it the way we use chicken noodle soup because whenever we're getting over anything, what I'll do is I make an Italian pastini in brodo where I actually take a whole chicken, not stock, and I put the whole chicken in a pot and I just cover it with water and I boil
Uh-huh.
it a long time so I get an incredibly fresh chicken stock.
Yeah, you're making your own. Yeah.
I make it my own, and that has a whole different quality to it. And I'll put some garlic in there with it and boil it all together. And then the chicken would be, quote, overcooked in normal circumstances, just like your rice is overcooked. Then I pour that off. And then, you can do whatever. But we like it simpler than more complicated. You can make it into a vegetable soup, whatever. But I actually like just the broth,
Hmm.
little Italian pastini in it. And I'm wondering if you like if how you sort of determine how simple to keep this.
Well, for today's sake of time, we do make our own broth. Like if for Thanksgiving, for instance, if we have
Sure.
turkey, we'll use that and make our broth. But for the
Yeah.
cookbook, I just wanted to put like you can
Yeah,
use
of course.
whatever
You're not
broth.
making everybody do
Yeah.
5 steps.
But I love how you brought up like a good homemade broth is amazing. And so
Yeah.
it's so different when you just get it from the store. If you do
Yeah.
it on your own, it's so flavorful and
Well, the
really
next
rich.
page is another very tempting one. One last time, honey hope cakes. This is just an unbelievable, appetizing photograph. And one thing I really like about your recipes, having read them, when Martha Stewart lost me forever when she first got going with her recipes. Do you remember she was doing all that stuff in the 90s, or you weren't around because you look like you're 12?
Well, I'm not 12, but I did watch the documentary on Netflix about her, which was I found
Okay,
so
but I
fascinating. Yeah.
remember her back in the day, and she had her sort of cooking, and she was having people stuff snow peas that you boiled them for 30 seconds, and then you clipped the end, and you were stuffing them with a cream cheese mixture using a syringe, and you're stuffing hundreds of them to serve as a kind of an appetizer. And she lost me at stuffed snow peas for the same reason you were saying in your cookbook. Hey, just use chicken stock. You don't have to boil a chicken. And I love your recipes for that reason. It's not like I didn't sigh reading any of them like, oh crap, now I've got to, start the stock 5 days before, slowly
Uh-huh.
simmer it for 12 hours. I want to just be able to make something.
Yeah, I think there's something in this cookbook for everyone. Like there are recipes that are more time intensive, like in the desserts, there's a baked Alaska,
Yeah, of
which you do have
course.
to make the cake and then you have to freeze ice cream. But then there are things that are really simple too, like you can
Well,
make a
I
hot
don't
cocoa
bake,
mix.
so I don't do
Oh,
any of that. Jeannie bakes, and my daughter-in-law bakes beautifully. So we've got bakers in this family. I'm not one of them. I'm first and second course, never dessert guy.
okay. I live for the finale for the dessert course, so that's interesting because my
I'm not
husband,
saying I don't like it.
yeah.
I'm saying that's not my thing.
Well, that works in our household too because my husband, like, for instance, like Easter's coming up and he'll make the protein.
Yeah,
He's
of
just
course.
like he always does the protein. So I'm grateful that, you know, what I don't really enjoy the most, like he does too. So it's a good partnership. So it's
It's a
some
good
same
mix.
for your
Okay,
household
I'm
too.
interrupting you. This is important. Keep taking
Okay.
us through. We're only at breakfast.
Okay, you're right. We're only at breakfast. Okay. So I think the next I think it's act one, yes. And
Yeah.
this is where you go into all the supporting sides and the dressings and
Yes.
the salads, which I feel like in a musical, those side characters are, just as important and sometimes they can be scene stealers
Well,
from the
and now
main
you're into what
characters.
I do.
Okay, yeah, all the
The
sides.
sides and then the main stuff. This is
Yeah.
what I do here.
And so yeah, these are all like the different sides. So like the very first one is just the mashed potatoes, which I spent a lot of time in Idaho, and I
Yes,
love potatoes. They're just my favorite
me too.
vegetable.
Here's the picture. Good,
Yeah,
nice photograph too.
thank
And you
you.
know what? Mashed potatoes are one of those things that if you put them back in the saucepan with a little milk 3 days later after you refrigerate them and whip them up, you can serve them tasting pretty much like the day you first made them.
Yeah,
And that's not the case with rice, and it's certainly not the case with a lot of stuff.
no, you're right. And I love how versatile potatoes are, and
Me
and so
too.
you can use this recipe for the mashed potatoes for like the shepherd's pie later for the
Yeah.
entree. So that's one of them.
And one thing I like doing, and I don't know if I don't think you did it, but there might be something that I have to can't remember everything you did. It might uh like you'd made crab cakes here a couple pages
Mhm.
later, but I always find with mashed potatoes that if you the next day, if you roll them in your hand and you turn them into little patties and then bread them or put cornmeal on them and fry them, then you make these little crispy potato croquettes, and that's a whole new dish, and but you haven't
Yeah.
had to do anything.
So I don't have that in the recipe, but I do have bubble and squeak, which is
Yeah,
another British thing. So
it's
it's
the
very
same
similar to
thing.
that.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
same idea.
Yeah. And I didn't grow up with that. So for me, like that's kind of a neat thing to find out. Oh, you could how people have repurposed different things and make it to
When
something totally different.
this is off the record, but it's directly
Yeah.
to do with this. When you grew up, who was cooking and what were you eating as a kid?
My mom was cooking.
And
She
what, I know this sounds awful. When you're in Trump world, you don't want to ask anybody where they're from. And you know what I mean. You're from Las Vegas. That's where you're living. But I just mean, what kind of food were you eating? Where was she from?
well, I have a pretty hybrid household. So my
Sure.
mother, she's first generation, and so she
From
came over to the United States when she was like 16,
from
and then my stepfather
from
is a
where
guy
though?
from Laos, and she's Thai and Chinese.
Okay, that's what I'm checking out
Yeah.
because like my Malay friends, there's Malay Malays and there's Chinese Malays. It's not like, oh, they're from Malaysia. So
Yeah,
she was,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
So what
So,
kind
I-
of food
so,
were you eating?
so I had a fusion of, pretty typical American food, but also some Thai, Chinese, and Lao food.
Lucky you.
Those were more rare because we're a military family, and so depending on where you lived, you don't have access to all the ingredients
So
like you
who
do
was in the
now.
military and what was their MOS? What were they doing? Given that I have a
Um,
son who's a
Yeah,
Marine.
so it was my stepfather, and he's in the army. So we lived a lot of different places around the world. I spent a
Sure.
lot of time overseas too, growing up, which is
Yeah.
I think I've loved. Like you had a guest on before who moved a lot, and I
Yeah.
moved a lot too. So, but this is
How
my
many kids
longest.
were moving around with your stepfather and your mom? How
So
many
I'm the
of them?
oldest of four.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So
But
you
now,
you know
yeah,
some shit too.
yeah, and now we've lived like my immediate family now we live in our area for quite a few years, and so it's interesting. I don't think one's better than the other, but I love having roots in a place too. Like I consider Las Vegas home, and
Yeah.
it's my mother-in-law, like she lives actually right next door to us, and
Well,
she's a
there you
widow,
are. You
so
got the
it's
whole thing. You exactly doing what Jeannie and me are doing too.
okay, yeah. And
And
it's been fun, to have this opportunity to have a grandma who is full time here, and we spend like I see her all the time, and it's been
that's
a joy
great.
for that too.
So
Yeah.
when you finally quit moving all over the place, was it because your dad retired, your stepdad retired, or did you just go to school, or how did that work
Yeah,
out?
well, I mean, then I'm older, so I went to school, and then I just living on my own, and then my family they still moved around a little bit more, but yeah, so it's just
Okay.
I went
Well,
to all of
it's
high
important
school.
to this book because the thing is, when you look at these photographs, you're a very skillful woman and you've learned this somewhere. You've done a lot of living, obviously, because first of all, this is great cooking and I love the pictures. You're a skillful photographer. You're a really good cook. You're a good writer. Your recipes are clear and excellent and easy to follow. And I don't, people won't first buy this as a cookbook, but honestly, you could. Hey, when you get to things like, I know I'm jumping ahead, but I'm going to get
That's
back
okay.
into the order here. When you get to fried wonton moons,
Hmm.
I just wanted to know, do you really make these from scratch? And if so, the actual, besides the filling, are you making every part yourself? Have you always done that? Are you telling people how to do this, or is part of this go buy something? And
Well, we do buy the dumpling, like the wonton skins.
that's
I
what I
don't
was
make,
asking.
yeah. So I don't
And
make
does it make
those.
a difference? It's not like fresh chicken. I mean, when you buy a wonton skin and make the dumpling, are you getting the same thing you would if you made it yourself?
I have been where I've made my own wonton
Yeah.
wrappers before, and they are really good, but I don't think it's that much of a difference because that's a lot of work for me. So
Let
I
me introduce you here so people know what we're talking about. Uh,
95% of the time I don't make
Yeah,
them.
the new book that we're talking about here is a few of my favorite things, recipes inspired by family-friendly musicals. And I know that sounds nuts, but it doesn't feel crazy when you open the book because, as I have been saying, like a broken record here, the photographs are beautiful. The rest, their work. This is a book you cannot help flipping through because every page looks so good. And then, in addition to the photographs, the recipes themselves are absolutely doable, and I've done a couple. And there's a few that I'm going to do, like congee, because I've always wanted to know how to make it. And then, in addition to that, because of your cultural background and all your moving around, Vida, you bring the sort of aesthetic cooking chops you bring to this book are not usual because this is the best of American stuff, like polar turkey burgers. Anybody could do this, and it's a real burger. But then on the other hand, you're bringing some of the Asian stuff, and it's the good stuff. It's the things you want anyway, and you want to know how to make that. So, plus you have incredible desserts in the finale section and so on. Okay, get back into it. Sorry.
Well, thank you. No, I appreciate your kind words and just your voice for other creators. That just means a lot to me. So thanks for having me here and
Yeah, well, me
we'll
too.
go into the
I
book.
mean, this is like I said, I describe my podcast a lot of ways, but fun isn't one of them.
Okay. Yeah, well, and I think for me, so I primarily like my professional job. I'm a writer, so I mostly write for
Yes.
children.
Yeah,
And with children, I always want to have, even if a book is hard, it has to have some sort of hope because a
sure.
kid needs to have something to hold on
Absolutely.
to. And I actually do write about things that are pretty tough.
Yeah,
Um, but I also think even all of the toughest things, there are bright spots. Like for instance, the pandemic was really difficult for so many. And you
of
mentioned
course it was. It was
people
awful.
lost their lives and it was tough for us.
Exactly.
But we also were able to come together with this great project. And so I think when we have challenges, we can find opportunities and they actually come to us sometimes too. I
Yeah,
don't
they
seek
do.
them out, but it just happens because I think people are pretty resilient and we
Yeah,
just fight through that with joy. And I think like, I don't want anything to take away my joy. And
yeah.
that's one of my acts as a resilience too. Just, I'm
Yeah,
going
and
to
I
try
think
to
that's well, guess what?
look for
This
positive
is
things.
this is a bit fun is a cheap, stupid word, but joy is a better one. And your book is joyful. It's a much
Thank
better word
you.
than fun, or even happiness is a cheap word. Joy is this is a joyful book, and your personality comes radiating through these beautiful photographs and recipes. Okay, are we at lunch yet, or am I just rattling on
I
to the
think we
point where
stopped at the sides,
okay,
but
let's
yeah. So Act One is the sides. Act
yeah,
Two is the main course, and that's how
yeah,
it is in a musical too. Like
yeah.
after Act One, I think my favorite parts. This is interesting because as talking to you, I sometimes prefer sides than I do the main course.
Oh, me too, every time. And how many restaurants have I gone to where it's like next time I'm not ordering, I'm ordering th three starters and that's it because they were so much better than the
Yeah,
entree.
yeah. The last number in Act One, where they're like that finale of Act
Yeah,
One, the ending. It's just like always the most powerful, and you leave intermission
of
like
course.
going to like so excited. Oh, and there is a section I forgot. I'm skipping. There is an intermission section. So there is. Where is that at?
And after you've
It's,
done that, link some of the recipes to the musicals just as a list, like just say the food, like kanji, say the food, and then link it to the musical that you link it to in the book. Because I want people to know the range of musicals you're linking stuff to. You kind of have a list at the back about that stuff, but
yeah. No, I'm trying to look for that section. Maybe I did it. So okay, for instance, yeah. So well, you mentioned fried wonton moons, and you
yeah,
could so that's on page 75. So you could do that for like Mulan or Turning Red.
Sure.
And that's an appetizer of sort, you know.
Yeah.
And so you can use it for intermission. Um, I have a kettle corn recipe here that I'll just show you that picture there.
Yes, I
So
like that
it's
too.
so simple, but I will use a whirly pop. It's one of
Yeah.
my it's my I just love that um, just the way it cooks the popcorn and the oil and the sugar together. It's like I've never
I like
actually had
it.
kettle corn from a carnival, but I
Yeah.
imagine it's probably something similar.
That's what they do. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so like I have this one is a strawberry milk recipe,
Oh,
and you can use this.
Ernie just texted me. Explain Whirly Pop.
Oh, thank you for asking that. So whirly pop is just it's like it's a pan that has a lid and has a crank, and so there's this spinner connected to it, and so it stirs the popcorn in the pan. And
Yeah,
I
kind of like
usually
a sort of salad spinner, except it's
yeah,
not.
that's such a good description. I
Yeah.
usually don't like to have a bunch of kitchen tools that do a lot of things, but
Yes.
a whirly pop and a potato ricer are my number one
Yeah,
extra
those
tools.
save a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and they make it really good too. So
Yeah.
thanks for asking that. Okay, I lost it there, but back to so we mentioned the floats before. There is this is a malted milkshake,
Okay, and
and
link it to the musical.
okay, this is I think I use it for White Christmas for sure,
Yeah,
and Grease because they had a lot of milkshakes in those two.
sure, absolutely. 50s musical, Grease.
White Christmas was a musical I loved growing up. So when I was going through it, I didn't realize how much they reference food in this musical.
Yes.
And so this is something they mentioned in it too. So that's kind of a fun one. But
Yeah.
but this actually, and so I did this milkshake recipe for the musical, but it also has ties a little bit to Las Vegas as well. Because here, I didn't grow up here, but my husband did. And there's a store called Thrifty's, and they have this like malted ice cream. So if you go to some like older parts of town, they'll still sell it here. And
Yeah,
it's kind of
sure.
like a West Coast, Vegas, Arizona thing.
Yeah.
So I got to add that into the musical, and you know that was kind of fun too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool.
But yeah, so Act Two is where all the main entrees are. Like I use um, hairspray. I do Edna's crispy chicken cutlets.
Yeah.
That's like a
Well, and Fat Sam's Grand Slam Chicken Parmesan's one of them. And let's see, what musical is that linked to?
where is that one?
Bugsy Malone.
Yes, I did not know Bugsy Malone until this year watching musicals. My husband
Very
grew up
cool.
watching it, and
Yeah.
it was just the most amazing thing. I think it was originally made in the 1970s, but
Mhm.
it's a mobster
Yeah, it's a
musical,
monster thing. So you,
and yeah.
yeah,
And I love how like back then it's all child actors, but the casting is like they're really clever and the songs are so catchy. But
yeah.
but in the musical they use whipped cream as like this visual tool for ammunition, you know. And so
Oh, I remember the movie well. I
okay,
forget when it came out, but one of my kids was young enough, or I should say old enough, because my daughter was born in 1970, and I forget when Bugsy Malone came out, but I took her, and I don't know how old she was, or maybe back in those days, if you didn't see the movie, you put it on, it was on a video cassette. But Bugsy Malone was something we watched because it's all kid actors
yeah,
shooting
yeah, and
each
then
other's with, not cream cheese, like whipped, I
whipped
mean,
cream,
yeah, whipped cream.
yeah, exactly.
Very cool.
And I just remember the scene, like, you know, like when they're taking each other out mobster style, they're just throwing pies at each other.
Yeah, exactly. It's
And
great.
and I can imagine as a kid, you know, I'm watching this as an adult for the first time, but as a kid, like
Yeah.
that's just it's so visually impactful. Like,
Yeah.
wow, it's really powerful. And it's
Yeah. You
so
could do a
fun.
Bugsy Malone party for children. It
Yes.
sure would beat clowns and bicycles made of balloons.
Yeah. And so that banoffee pie, you know, I mean, you can use the whipped cream for Bugsy Malone, or you can use it for any British musical because banoffee is,
Yeah, of
um,
course.
it's like this. Did you ever have that when you're doing that English boarding school? You know, it's like it's a banana. It's like the British version of a banana cream pie, but they use toffee. So it's like I use dulce de leche and
Yeah.
then bananas. You know, again, I've never actually had an English version since I'm just making this
Well,
on
one
my
of
own.
these
But
days you will. Little Mermaid, you've got Under the California Sea sushi rolls.
Yes.
I love those. You've got the avocado and everything great in there, and they look wonderful.
Yeah, and that picture, I purposely took that my son, like he helped make that roll himself,
I
and
love it.
it's not a perfect roll. Like
No,
there's
no, I love it because this is like it is genuinely homemade, but still classy
yeah.
because your hands look great and the dish is beautiful. And it's like, no, this is something someone would serve you at your house. It isn't sort of, rolled up by a pro behind a counter in a supermarket. This is like, it looks very appetizing that way.
When we do sushi nights, it's a lot of work because you have to make the sushi rice and we have to
Yeah, of
make the crab
course.
filling,
Do you
but
use the
it's
little
fun.
roll thing to roll it up? Whatever
Yeah.
it is. What
So
do
it's
you
like
call
this
that?
little bamboo mat,
With the little
and
sticks and the mat in it.
I have some of them, but I also have like some placemats that are that shape, so we'll use those too.
Yeah, did you ever watch that movie, the documentary Hero Dreams of Sushi?
I love that movie. Yes.
Me too.
Yeah.
And have you ever watched another movie I love about food, Eat, Drink, Man, Woman?
I don't think I've seen that one.
Okay,
Yeah.
then take that as a word of God to you today.
Okay.
Because if you go away from my podcast with one thing that you will thank me for someday,
I'm gonna write this down.
this is the big one. It's the best food movie I've ever seen in terms of the actual cooking. And as someone who cooks, but the story is terrific and it's all set in Taiwan in the 1980s or 90s. Eat, Drink, Man, Woman.
I think I remember hearing about it. It's is it a documentary or is it an
No,
actual?
it's a
Okay.
feature film.
Okay.
And there, it's phenomenal. It's great about the family dynamic. The cooking will flabbergast you. It's about a father who's a professional chef and how he's sort of managing this household full of daughters that he's raising by himself. And food is it. The whole movie is about his use of food with his family. It's the way he shows love, but it's the most
Yeah.
incredibly, I think it's one of the most gorgeously shot films I've ever seen. So whoever made this movie loves food like you do. And you have not been well served by your friend circle. I'm going to question them all and say, what the hell are you doing? Why doesn't Vita know about this movie? Because it's like, it's your movie.
Okay.
Eat,
I
Drink, Man,
wonder.
Woman. It would be on my top 10 all-time list. I watch that
Okay.
film once a
Well,
year
that's
just to
pretty
get used
high.
to it.
Yeah. No, thank
Yeah.
you for that recommendation, and I love it because it sounds really familiar. I remember seeing maybe on Netflix or something, but I don't know why we just haven't watched
Yes,
it.
you will love it.
Okay. Thank you.
If I feel like everything's coming apart, hell in a handcart, I watch one comedy, which is The Birdcage, the American version, and I watch Eat, Drink, Man, Woman. Those films always leave me feeling better than when I went in. So,
Yeah.
like how you want people to feel thumbing through your book.
Yes. Thank
So
you.
I basically want to tell you if the Trump years are getting you down, or you voted for Trump and now all your liberal neighbors hate you, whatever the situation is, if you want to cheer yourself up, find a copy of Favorite Things. And I challenge you to make one of these recipes. It'll work well. And then you'll find yourself making other ones because this is really lovely. And I like,
Thank
by the
you.
way, that it's not a hardcover because it makes it so fun to flip through. You can do this.
Yes, my publisher was very mindful of
You
that
can
too.
do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And you're going to want to do this because this is the best looking book that you'll have. Anyway, keep going. Tell us
Yeah,
more.
well, and thinking about the cookbook and the musicals, and if someone was to make like a night of watching a musical, I hope they don't feel like they have to do a whole theme. Like I feel if
No,
you,
nobody's going to feel like you making them do anything.
yeah, but just like one recipe, it makes it an eventful thing,
Yeah.
because not only are you sharing this experience of watching a show together, but just sharing like you're breaking
Yeah,
bread
but I
too,
mean,
you're
like
having
the
that
other
food.
day, two of my granddaughter, Nora had is having her 11th birthday, and then her 16-year-old sister, and then I had my grandson Jack here with a friend of his, same age, and they stayed here for the night, and I cooked for them. But the sisters were going to do a movie night together as part of one of their birthday. And how about a movie night and, you know, cooking something together?
Hmm.
A movie night that goes, I mean, all these musicals are on film or video or whatever. Cook the food that goes with the movie you're going to watch.
Yeah, it makes an
A
experience.
nice project.
Thank you, thank you, and I. I'm just so grateful that I had the opportunity to write a cookbook. Once upon a time, I had a food blog years ago, and it was really good. That's where I learned how
Yeah.
to do recipes. Like I was trying to, my mom passed away years ago and I had this assignment from her, like, oh, write down all my recipes. And so I was
Sure.
keeping this blog to do that, but it was really good. And I had um, a lot of fun doing it, but it was just a lot of work too, having
Of
to
course.
constantly have right food. So I gave it up for a little bit. Well, I just gave it up actually, not for a little bit. I don't
Yeah,
have it
yeah.
anymore. But I love that things that sometimes we're attracted to, like I don't know why I did that back then, but I love that experience was able to use them to my writing now.
Well, it
You
was a
know,
good idea at the time and also carries forward into a real project now. Let me ask you a
yeah,
question about the availability of this book. I can't imagine trying to read this or use it on Kindle. Is it on Kindle with
yeah. There are.
okay.
It's an ebook too.
And are the pictures in there?
Yes.
I mean, I've just so enjoyed having it around and flipping through it.
Yeah,
So
I'm not someone who uses a lot of just because I prefer paper books.
I actually read a
So
lot on Kindle these days to prepare for
okay,
what I call my authors, which is you.
yeah,
Okay? Because here's the thing, when I read in hard copy, I can underline a passage, but every time I read one, I've got to put my glasses on,
uh-huh,
which is why I haven't been reading out of your book, because then I've got to do this because I'm 70 something going on 1,000 and I've got to, then it makes a thing. And that's fine, but it's so much easier for me to cut and paste on notes that I can scroll in front of me
yeah.
that has the page number and guess, and I can make it bigger so that I can just read it because I can enlarge it.
Yeah, I love how we have like technology. It makes it available for those kind of things too. With
Yeah.
like yeah, you can increase the font and stuff.
But I
I
imagine this doesn't
yeah.
do a book that you listen to because how are you going to listen to a recipe or can you? Is it a book's audio book?
It's not an audiobook to my knowledge, no.
Okay.
But I do feel like I've never ever listened to a cookbook on audio. That's really interesting.
And
I'm sure there are
I don't
some.
think it doesn't sound like something that would work.
Yeah.
I mean, the only good thing about the audio is you could put clips from the musical in.
Oh, that's a really interesting thought. Yeah. I do love the voice of different chefs though. So, and I try to do that too, like where I'm just not saying this is how you do it, but like I have cookbooks in my own collection that I just love reading the book because I love how that person describes food or tells us their
Yeah,
stories.
sure.
So I hope I was able to do that too here. Were you good to
Well,
know?
you very much do it.
Okay, a little bit of, just a little bit, not to take over the whole recipe, but a little bit like why we picked that recipe or the history we researched or
Yeah.
why my kids gravitated towards that one in particular. So,
Yeah, well, we're coming to a close here to wrap it up, but let me just recommend this highly to people. If you're a cook, you're going to love this because it's the real thing. This is real food. It's good, and the recipes really work. Photographs are sensational, and the tie into musical gives you a movie night if you want to project with anybody. Whether you're 72 or you have a 10-year-old who's going to do a real thing with you that's going to be fun because you're going to watch the musical something comes from, and it's a great idea. I love that it came out of your reaction to COVID. You're stuck, you do something. Is there anything you want to tell people about this book in terms of how to get it? And then stay on after I get off here and stop talking to you and go away, because then you can talk to Ernie a little bit to give him all the links you want to help us promote this.
sounds good. Yeah, you can get anywhere books are sold. Like it's available on Barnes and Noble, any of like the bookshop or wherever you like to buy your books. I don't know where people
Good.
buy them, but yeah. So,
Yeah. And
and
anything that we haven't covered I know we haven't covered all the recipes and we got the breakfast and we did this and we did that, but we've sort of given a good picture of the book, I think.
I just feel I can't believe I did this cookbook, first of all. Like the
Yeah.
fact that, we have this project. And I think I just want to share that with your listeners too, that if they have something that they're passionate about or just, you know, gravitate towards, like there's something there and you don't know
Yes.
what's going to happen. But one day you can have you know, you can create something that's really meaningful to like not just to yourself but others too. And I hope that during this
Yes.
time we remember that when we share those things and just
Yeah.
keep working out our craft.
Well, and also that here's a project that comes out of a family time of togetherness and projects that you do with your family. Your husband cooks, you cook, your kids are involved with all of this. They were around when this was, I mean, that I think has flavored this book and why it just is so wonderful to go through because you feel like you've been, invited over to somebody's house. I mean, I feel like I participated in your project now.
Thank you for saying that. I wish I could, have everyone over and I can make them that meal, but hopefully
Well,
this
you
is a
can. I
good
mean, all
thing.
you got to do is go make her congee for breakfast tomorrow morning, and you'll know what the score is. So, this is In Conversation with Frank Schaeffer. Please subscribe right now on YouTube, where this went out live, and then, of course, it's going to be as a podcast on all the places we do podcasts, and on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and to my Substack commentary. It has to be said at frankschaeffer.substack.com. And please subscribe to both of those. Tell people about this book. Go make some of this food. If you haven't seen some of these musicals and you're not into musicals, change your mind and watch some of the musicals that Veeda has offered us, along with beautiful pictures of food. So I can't think of anything about this book I don't like, because the writing's good, the recipes are makeable and easy and not too many steps. The photographs are beautiful, and the spirit of the book comes through. Time redeemed instead of, that time with COVID. So what a great story about the making of the book.
Thank you. Thank you so much for seeing all this too. I appreciate your insight.
Hey, thanks for doing the book. Talk to Ernie, stay in touch with us so that next time you do a young adult book, we can come back and talk about it.
I love that. Thank you.
All
Okay.
right. All the best. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
And love to
Okay.
you and your family. Okay.